Welcome to How to Survive the Kitchen. I'm your host, and today we'll be taking you on another magical kitchen journey to teach you how to survive the kitchen. So, somewhere along the line, you messed up, and now your house looks like Satan's housewarming. What to do? Well, that depends on what type of fire you messed up and set your house ablaze with, as what works for one might cause disastrous results with another. Now, some forewarning. Your first reaction in these situations should always be to smother the fire. Grab a pot lid or a baking sheet and cover the pot or pan that you're cooking with and just smother out the flames. Fire needs oxygen to keep burning, and if it doesn't have that, well, it won't keep burning. Furthermore, if a fire is really big or if it's growing really quickly, then you should grab a fire extinguisher and try to use that to extinguish the fire, or evacuate the area and call 911. If you don't know how to use a fire extinguisher, or if you just want to see more of my pretty face, there's a video linked in the description that'll teach you all about how to use a fire extinguisher. Now, let's talk about the various types of fires and what you can do to combat each one individually. So, you accidentally made your meal into charcoal, or you tried stir-frying your recipe book. Well, there are several things you can do from here. First, there's the always effective pour water on it until it stops smoking. That'll work as long as there isn't a ton of oil or grease, as we'll get to later. This is basically the only type of fire you can use this method for, and it's messy anyway, so I don't recommend it. You can also use those wonderful white powders. Salt and baking soda. These aren't flammable, so they can be used to smother the flame. Just make sure that you use enough to completely smother the fire. Your pan probably won't survive a fire, but it's better its funeral than yours. So, the robot uprising has begun, and your toaster is the first casualty. What to do? Well, the first step is to unplug the thing, obviously. More electricity will just make the fire angrier. Next is to absolutely not try and douse it with water. I don't know if you somehow missed this step in first grade physics, but water conducts electricity, so unless you want to cast fireball in around your house, just don't use water. You can also try to smother the fire. Using a heavy metal pot or lid could work if you have something big enough to cover it. And same goes with salt and baking soda, but I doubt you have enough of that stuff to submerge your naughty toaster anyway. The next best thing to use is a Class C fire extinguisher. These are designed to handle electrical fires, and shock surprise, they do. I recommend an ABC fire extinguisher for home use, as these can handle various types of fires, as in the three most common types. Next, we have a slightly different type of fire. Now, you might be saying, didn't we just go over electrical fires? How are oven fires any different? Do you have dementia? And if so, you're annoying. But oven fires aren't necessarily electrical in nature. It can also be caused by food catching on fire within the oven, so there. Anyway, these fires are different in how you handle them, which is to say, you kinda don't handle them. If something in the oven catches on fire, what you should do is turn off the oven, immediately close it, and keep it that way. Don't open it under any circumstances. With the door shut, the fire should extinguish itself as it uses all the oxygen in the area. If it doesn't start to diminish, or even starts to expand outside of the oven, use a fire extinguisher. And if that doesn't work, call 911 and evacuate the area. Next up, we have the most infamous fire type. Now it's time to get serious. I said earlier that you shouldn't use water for food fires with lots of grease or oil. And the reason for that is simple. You see, water and oil, they don't mix. Obvious, right? We all remember that. Well, when oil or grease catches on fire, and then water is thrown on, the oil splashes everywhere, still on fire. The water also tends to rapidly evaporate, and that water vapor tends to take the hot oil with it, essentially creating a giant fireball in your house. This is no bueno, and can result in horrible burns and the fire getting even larger. When you're faced with an oil fire, you have two options. First, smother it with a lid or baking sheet. A heavy piece of fabric or clothing will work. Just make sure that you try and dampen it first, because the water will better disperse the heat. Next, you can use a Class K fire extinguisher. But unless you have one of these special silver fire extinguishers, you should just call 911 and evacuate. Class K fire extinguishers are typically only used for commercial kitchens, so you probably don't have one around. Although you should get one if you're planning on doing anything atrocious like deep frying a pizza or something. Also, never try and use a regular fire extinguisher. These might cause a similar problem as regular old water. If you don't remember anything else, remember this. Never throw water on an oil fire. And that's all I have for you today. Remember, if you don't know what you're doing, find someone who does. If you want to not stay ignorant and uninformed for the rest of eternity, watch these other videos. Or not. Either way, please be safe. The kitchen doesn't deserve your fear, but it does deserve your respect. show everything in the kitchen respect and the caution it deserves, and you'll be living a long, happy life, hopefully not filled with medical bills. That's all I have for you today. Bye!